Sign in and put your
Might have been
address.
today or yesterday that they.
And then when you approach the microphone, just state your name and your address.
All of the restaurant, all of the bars.
No, I'm talking about ARB, architectural review.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about Main Street Cat, MSK. See, I got all these.
Yeah, no, I was talking about actually
Not an employee, but he's an elected official.
I like the old term. I looked at it well too.
One of those little Chinese
I know the
battery
clothes
powered.
are out.
I know it's not the rules you got.
I think it's subjective though. We don't have any legal.
I think it's a great guy, but maybe you're not even
I
good
don't know.
at the job.
I guess I want to
But that would be the only thing. I don't think.
Oh, I think it was 6 years ago. It was 2006.
I never could tell when you're.
That makes me feel bad.
I know. I didn't like that tone. I would just like to turn it over. I just want to give like as presented.
Since
Send a
we,
message.
we're the ones that have to make the decision, and let them yell and scream at us.
I don't think they should have passed it.
He yelled and screamed at me publicly.
What money?
Whatever some of the emergency ARPA things
He's welcome to
because
bring it
otherwise
to
we
time.
just
Yes, it must
I'd
have
like to,
been.
I mean.
So I
So they
Yeah,
told him,
I
I
have
said,
it.
this is pettiness. You're being, yeah, it's not professional.
No, I didn't.
No, it's not. I don't think that our business owners would be.
I also
Forgot to call
to
Jim.
continue this, I really do have a problem, as much as Clevenger's, letter, he comes from. The fact that we do.
You get all your sauce made, Heidi?
Is doing things.
Actually, I did.
Businesses.
Yeah, it was a very hot day in the kitchen. Boiling down tomato sauce.
Then you have to talk to council under public communication. You need to sign in with the clerk.
Committee to study that.
That sounds great.
I want to see him go to Rod.
Yeah.
Good evening, it's 7:30. I'm going to call to order the August 18th, 2021 regular council meeting. Would the clerk please read the roll?
Mr. Amrine?
Here.
Mr. De Leon?
Here.
Mr. Ferrara?
Here.
Mr. Kuhar?
Here.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Here.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Here.
Mr. Sidoti?
Here.
Ms. Wallach?
Here.
Mr. Turner asked to be excused. Is there a motion?
Move to excuse.
Second. Second by Roger. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Pledge of allegiance by Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
All right, I do have some remarks. Not very many, but I just did want to bring up the fact that we're all wearing masks here on council, and that's for a reason. And that's because we haven't kicked this pandemic yet. And we have that opportunity to, if people would get vaccinated and also practice, make safer practices. So I just want to urge all of our citizens to get vaccinated. It's not just for you, it's for all of us. And not just for Kent, but for the whole nation and the whole world. So let's think about civic responsibility. And, unless you have some real health reason, why not? It's really an important thing to do. That being said, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Here.
Fire department did that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to move the approval of the minutes and the regular city council meeting of July 21st and the special council meeting of August 4th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrer. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain. Abstain. Uh-oh.
2 abstentions.
Three.
3, okay.
How do you do that?
You weren't here for regular.
So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. Gonna have to do it
3.
again.
It passed.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Majority.
We actually have to have
Majority.
them up.
Okay, moving on to communications. Public communications, Amy?
We have we have 2 people signed in. Our first speaker is Wendy D'Alessandro.
Wendy D'Alessandro. Does that work?
Yeah, speak into it real close. There we go.
I live on Mogador Road. On July 1st of this year, my husband purchased a guitar and amplifier, and he wanted to test their quality. My husband plays in a band, and he has had his sound equipment set up in our barn, which is about 100 feet to the rear of our house at 1477 Mogador Road. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon. He tested the sound for about 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the most. During this time, our neighbor to the south called the police to complain about the noise. The police arrived well after my husband had finished his short sound check. All was quiet. However, my neighbors had recorded at least part of my husband's sound check and signed off on a noise complaint against him. On July 29th, my husband pled not guilty in Portage County Municipal Court. His pretrial is set for August 26th. This is a criminal offense. We have had to retain an attorney at who knows what expense for tuning a guitar. My husband and I have come to understand that Kent's noise ordinance, though typically enforced only after 9 p.m., applies at any time of the day if the sound crosses property lines and the person taking offense signs a complaint. If you are wondering if there is negative history between our neighbors to the south and us, you would be correct. The details are unimportant. Suffice to say that after the July 1st incident, my husband's band could not practice in the barn anymore. They had been practicing once a week from approximately 7 to 9 p.m. Instead, with COVID still an active concern, they have had to crowd into our basement and do the best they can in an environment where the sound quality is well short of optimal. This is a band that has donated its talent to multiple events in Kent, most recently Main Street Kent's virtual Christmas celebration and the Heritage Fest at the end of June. I remember when Kent's noise ordinance was enacted. It was clearly aimed at Kent's young residents being rowdy at all hours of the day and night. It was not targeted at a 57-year-old man tuning his guitar for 10 or 15 minutes. It was not aimed at a bunch of old guys playing country music in a barn for a few hours. It was not aimed at a man with a vindictive neighbor. I stand before you this evening to ask that you guide the City of Kent in revising its noise ordinance, perhaps so that it only applies after 9 p.m. As it is, a person can sign a noise violation for a person mowing his lawn, running a chainsaw, or anything else that crosses property lines. The unintended consequence of the noise ordinance is that a spiteful neighbor can call the police on a man who had the audacity to tune his guitar for 10 or 15 minutes in the middle of the afternoon. I would like to know the procedure and perhaps a timeline for seeing a reasonable revision through, and what my husband and I may do to help expedite the process. I also ask for guidance tonight as to what course of action my husband's band should take. Because of this neighbor, practice was relocated to our basement. The problems are that COVID is getting worse and that any review of the city's noise ordinance is likely to take months. Since one of the band members works in a school where COVID is even more of a concern, the band does not have the luxury of time. Can you tell me tonight what the band is to do and where?
Okay, thank you. I forgot to read my statement before yet. This has nothing to do with you. I apologize to you, though. Under citizens' remark, while the law does not require council to provide time for the public comment, we have historically invited the public to make comment, and we appreciate your input. This is the time when residents and others can compliment or any other manner concerns them bring their issues to us. However, we will not engage in any debate, and as President of the Council, I reserve the right to end any public comment that is disruptive, embarrassment, harassing, or otherwise objectionable. We ask that you come to the podium and speak into the mic very clearly. Your name and address and 3 minutes for the limit. I'm sorry I didn't do that, but next.
Mr. Chris Clevenger Morris.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
before they start, is it appropriate for me to ask Hope a question?
We generally don't. Bring it up under
Under new
comments
business.
at the end of the meeting.
Mr. Mayor and members of council, first I wanted to thank each of you for allowing me a few moments to speak to you this evening. I appreciate your time.
You give
and the
your
work
name and
you're doing.
address for the
That's in
record?
that's in the next line, I apologize.
All right.
In the event that some of you may not recognize me, my name is Christopher Clevenger Morris. I currently reside at 1290 Denise Drive in Kent. Each of you should have received an email from me in my official capacity as chairman of the Kent Planning Commission. In the message, I address concerns I have surrounding the attendance of members on Planning Commission and encourage council to seek answers as to whether or not those concerns were felt by other boards and commissions in our city. As I was writing to you in my official capacity as chair of the Planning Commission, I felt it was necessary to use formal letterhead. Upon receiving essentially a cease and desist letter from the city for doing so, I wanted to be clear of a couple of things for your record. First and foremost, the letter each of you received was drafted and sent by me personally, in my capacity as chairman. It was in no way reviewed by, coordinated with, or approved by any city department. They wanted to make that clear, and I wanted to make sure it was clear as well. With that being said, I felt it was also necessary to make that distinction, as city staff felt it was necessary to expend time in correcting that record for themselves, not only in disputing the fact that I used that letterhead, but also then disputing my own personal opinions that I am, in my opinion, obligated to provide to you as chair of that commission. With all of that being said, however, I do want to respond to some of the statements made in the letter you received from Mr. Fink. While an attendance policy does currently exist for board and commission members, we are not encouraged as a body to do anything other than to excuse members when they are absent. While chairing the Planning Commission, if I was to ask if there was a motion to excuse an absent commissioner, if I was to not ask if there was a motion to excuse an absent member, a member of staff would then ask if we wanted to do so. We've seen it happen several times in the last several years, and you can hear this on our recordings. If we forget, we are very promptly reminded. For what it's worth, I oftentimes appreciate this, because on the off chance that we have forgotten, and it's not a standard part of the agenda because we hope that people are there in person, someone's out sick, someone has a logical reason to not be there, we want to make sure that they're excused. That's the right thing to do. But it oftentimes doesn't communicate as a question, but rather a directive from staff that they be excused. Following the most recent meeting of the Planning Commission, I asked staff if there was a way to compel our members to attend our meetings, as I had begun to notice an issue with attendance. Mr. Fink did, in fact, note that we could choose to not excuse a member who is absent, much like he had referenced the existing statute in the letter that you all received from him. His response was direct and honest, and I appreciated that. However, that recommendation was immediately met with pushback from other city staff, stating that it would set a bad and dangerous precedent if we began to do so. At this point, you can see why we're confused on what we should do. I have somebody from the law department telling me that we have the right to not excuse someone if they shouldn't be excused, and that is the only way to remove someone from our boards and commissions. And then I have members of staff telling me that I have no choice but to excuse them because it's difficult to fill those vacancies. What am I to do? I was told that this sets a bad or dangerous precedent. So, what I believe is a bad and dangerous precedent is city staff standing idly by while a member misses essentially 1/3 of our meetings of a commission in the last 18 months. What I believe sets a bad or dangerous precedent is for city staff to essentially encourage us to skirt the rules because it has been difficult for them to recruit volunteers for certain boards and commissions in the past. If you recall, when I applied years ago, we didn't have a lacking of applicants. So I don't know where this problem stems from today, but we've never had a problem with filling some of these positions. And what I believe sets a bad or dangerous precedent is for us to not hold one another to a higher standard and to chastise members of our boards and commissions for speaking out when they have genuine concerns about the bodies on which they serve. At the end of the day, something has to change. While staff may not agree with my concerns surrounding the absences of certain individuals, I have seen the problems and disorganization those absences have caused. It is imperative that council provides some sort of direction as to whether or not we should or even can choose to unexcuse our members when they are absent. Because as it stands, we're receiving conflicting advice from different members of staff. One who encourages us to follow the law and statute, and another who places their own pride over the needs of the city and very rules this body has adopted. That's a disservice to you, to our volunteers who serve on our boards and commissions, and to the citizens of Kent who deserve to have all of our board and commission members present should they ever need them. Thank you.
Thank you. Further, Amy?
No one else has signed in.
Written?
A letter from Mr. Christopher Clevenger Morris, Chair of the Planning Commission, was received on July 23, 2021 regarding attendance of members of the Planning Commission, Architectural Review Board, and Board of Zoning Appeals. Notice to legislative authorities received from the Department of Commerce Division of Liquor Control regarding the process of yearly renewal of liquor license applications, and the legislative authority to object to a renewal received on July 23, 2021. An email from Marion Brannon regarding feral cats on property received July 26, 2021. Letter from the Portage County Board of Commissioners regarding Portage County Vision and Comprehensive Plans received July 26, 2021. Standing Rock Cemetery Board of Trustees meeting minutes of July 8th and the agenda for August 12th was received on August 4th. The Board of Health meeting minutes from July 13th and the agenda for August 10th was received on August 5th, 2021. An email from Mr. John Kuhar regarding an offer made on North Water Street properties received and forwarded to Council on August 3rd, 2021. An email from Valerie Landis from Garage 108 LLC regarding feedback from the Architectural Review Board meeting of August 3rd, received and forwarded to Council on August 6th, 2021. An email from Mark Kirby regarding the new city flag received and forwarded to Council on August 9th. A notification of filing an audit report from the Ohio Auditor of State was received on August 10th, 2021. An email from Mrs. Stacy Albaugh, who resides at the Landmark Building in downtown Kent regarding yelling and loud noises at night in Dan Smith Park was received on August 11th, 2021. A liquor license transfer request was received August 10th, 2021 for Kent State University Campus Building 1 through 9 at 106 Kent Student Center, Kent, and Chief Shear had no objections to that.
Need a motion, Jack?
Move to return with no comment.
Second.
Second by Jack. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Communication received after the agenda was published. The August Parks and Recreation Board packet was received August 13th. And then I received a second liquor license transfer request today from Speedway LLC, DBA Speedway, or doing business as Speedway, 9303 to Midwest Convenience, Inc., doing business as Rebel 909, located at 1295 West Main Street, Kent, Ohio. Chief Shear had no objections to this
Move to
trade.
return with no comment.
Second.
Second by John. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
That's all.
Okay, thank you. City Manager's Report, Jack?
Yes, I'd like to move items 1 through 13 on the city manager's report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Gwen. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, can we expedite item number 6 on the City Hall project?
Make a motion.
I would move to expedite the committee time to allow members of the, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one, for the, to share the update on the status of the new City Hall project bids.
Second.
Second by Heidi.
Yeah.
Discussion?
Time is money, and we're wasting time. And I just want, that needs to be a top priority for this council and administration. So.
Heidi, you have further?
I think Garrett said it.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Studi?
Yep, I've beaten the drum for 4 years now about the city hall, so I'll continue beating the drum. We need to move forward, and I think directing our administration to make this the highest priority, other than the COVID, I think is appropriate at this time.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Committee of the Whole, need a motion for the meeting of August the 4th?
So moved.
Second. Second by Roger. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. There's no action recommended. We do have a draft. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-075 entitled only?
I'd like to move that we table the draft ordinance and send that to the September committee meeting.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is that appropriate? All right.
Do you have any comment?
Gwen, do you have comment?
I do. I just want to give the public and council members who may have missed that meeting an opportunity to comment on the flag. I think there's a great deal of interest. I think people are going to be really excited about a new city flag. I just want to make sure the public has an opportunity to weigh in.
Heidi?
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel. I think that that's the Kent way really is for citizen involvement, and we think better together. to let citizens have the opportunity to weigh in on it, say what they like, maybe they have some suggestions, and then come back together and see how do we put all the comments together into something worthy of our city. I think it's a great prototype, though, I have to say.
Any other comments? Keep in mind, there's a resolution that tells you what has to be on that flag. John?
Oh, yeah, and I don't recall that, you know, we saw a lot of options to choose from, and so I'd like to see it discussed further also.
That's fine. Mike, did you have your hand up?
We can change that resolution, can't we?
By vote,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's all I want to know. All right.
Anybody else? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Motion.
Aye.
Table it.
Table it.
Table it, yes.
And put it in committee.
Yes.
No, that's two different things. Am I right? Table,
Yeah, you're right, that's two different.
so you want to table it or you want to put it in committee?
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we table it, and then I'd like to make a motion that we put it in committee. Do I need to separate those two then?
I think tabling,
Would come first.
refresh my memory, if tabling, it takes 5 members to bring it back up for discussion.
You just put it in
Do we need to
committee.
table it to send it to committee?
I'd put, never mind, you do what you want, I'd put it in committee.
I think we can put it in committee.
Well, that's what the motion was. right?
No, her first motion was to table.
Table, she said table.
Once we throw
I'd actually just like to ask Amy and Hope real quick. All I want to do is send it to committee. What would be the best way to frame that?
Yeah, I would just make a motion to send it to committee.
Okay, can I adjust my motion then?
Yes.
To send that, I'd like to make a motion that we send the flag to committee.
And that was
That's
Second.
that's clear. Heidi, are you going to accept the
I'm
second?
in support.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay,
Aye.
thank you. That's it for committee of the whole. Community Development, Mr. Kuhar.
Okay, I'd like to move the approval of the July 7th minutes and the one action.
Second.
no action.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Would clerk read draft number 2021-076 in title only?
Draft number 2021-076, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to approve the installation of a public-private shared use sign on the west side of Googler Avenue and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Second by John. Okay, please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Amorine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, all, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Amorine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-076 has passed.
Okay, thank you. Health and Public
Amy,
Safety.
wait.
Isn't there, August 4th, he's got to approve
What did
those
I miss?
minutes too, doesn't he? Or did we do that already?
Oh,
Pardon?
I'm sorry.
Mike, I didn't hear what you
Oh,
said.
August 4th, it said July 7th and then August 4th right next to it. Is that two sets
John,
of
what was in
minutes?
your motion?
You have to do the August 4th meeting too.
Amy, read the motion that John made.
I believe it was for August 4th. Yeah. There were 2 sets of minutes.
So then we have to do July 7th.
I thought I just read the line.
Well,
He said August 4th.
Well, If I
All right,
didn't
if you
just
did-
read the line, I meant the line.
Oh, we did.
Okay, that's good then. We're good then. All
Do
right.
redo.
well, do Amy have, for the record, has August 4th? So
Okay,
John,
she has it.
make the motion for July the 7th.
And also the motion to approve the minutes of July 7th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Jack. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed,
Abstain.
same sign, so I guess we're kosher now.
Did you hear the abstention?
Got it.
All right, Health and Public Safety, Mr. Amorine.
Yeah, I just have minutes to approve, so I'd like to move the approval of minutes from the July 7th and August 4th meetings.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
July 20.
Okay, thank you.
Ah.
There's no action. Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Sidoti.
Yes, I'd like to first move the committee meeting minutes of July 7th and August 4th, 2021.
Second by Mr. Ferrer. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you.
And I'd now like to move the 4 actions that were
Second.
recommended.
Second by Mr. Ferrer. Is there any discussion on the actions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-091 in title only?
Draft number 2021-091, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to amend the City of Kent's recycling service contract with Portage County Solid Waste Management District specifically to change the pickup schedule and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrer. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-091 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-077 in title only?
Draft number 2021-077, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to amend the approved street closure for the Kent Oktoberfest being held September 25th, 2021, to begin at the intersection of Franklin Avenue and Erie Street and proceeding north to include the closure of a portion of Main Street that fronts Hometown Plaza and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Roger. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
And Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-077 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-078 in title only?
Draft number 2021-078, an ordinance to amend Title VII of the Kent Codified Ordinances titled Garbage, Chapters 933, 935, and 936, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Roger. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
And Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
And Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-078 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-079 in title only?
Draft number 2021-079, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to enter in an agreement with Kent State University and the City of Kent for a temporary outdoor ice rink for the 2021-2022 winter season and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
And Mr. Ferrara.
Yes. Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Roger. Any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Ms. Wallach.
Yes.
Mr. Amrine.
Yes.
Mr. De Leon.
Yes.
And Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-079 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Finance Committee, Mr. DeLeon.
I'd like to move the committee meeting minutes of July 7th and August 4th.
Second.
Second by Gwen. Is there any discussion on it? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Anybody need these separated, the 6 actions? I'll move all 6 actions.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on the actions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-080 in title only?
Draft number 2021-080, an ordinance authorizing the city manager or his designee to approve and execute an amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding between the City of Kent, Ohio and the Kent City Board of Education regarding the School Resource Officer Program, extending this agreement until June 3rd, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
And Mr. Kuhar?
Yes. Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-080 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-81 in title only?
Draft number 2021-081, an ordinance authorizing the certification of non-payment of bills for residents resulting from the 2018 annual concrete repair program to the county auditor in order to allow for the placement of the certified amount on the real property tax list in duplicate against the property for the non-payment of sidewalk repairs and declaring an emergency.
Move.
Suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Adoption.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Is there any discussion on adopting this? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
And Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-081 is passed. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-82 in title only?
Draft number 2021-082, an ordinance authorizing the certification of non-payment of water use charges, wastewater use charges, stormwater utility charges, and recycling/solid waste collection charges to the county auditor in order to allow for the placement of the certified amount on the real property tax list and duplicate it against the property for the non-payment of water use charges, wastewater use charges, stormwater utility charges, and recycling solid waste collection charges in declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 2021-082 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-83 in title only?
Draft number 2021-083, an ordinance authorizing the certification of delinquent mowing bills, property maintenance violation citations, zoning violation citations, and health department violation citations to the county auditor in order to allow for the placement of the certified amount on the real property tax list and duplicated against the property served by the mowing services, property maintenance violation citation, zoning violation citation, health department violation citations, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Abstain.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-083 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-84 in title only?
Draft number 2021-084, an ordinance authorizing the city to submit a request to the Department of Commerce, Economic Development Administration, EDA, for the release of federal interest in the City of Kent EDA Revolving Loan Fund, RLF program, and if approved by the EDA, authorizing the city manager or his designee to sign an agreement to release the EDA federal interest in the city's Economic Development Administration Revolving Loan Fund, EDA RLF, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
And Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-084 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-85 in title only?
Draft number 2021-085, an ordinance authorizing the amendments of the City of Kent Economic Development Administration Revolving Loan Fund, EDA RLF plan, to be submitted to the EDA for approval and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
And Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion
Okay.
about adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
And Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-085 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-86 in title only?
Draft number 2021-086, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2020-129, the current appropriation ordinance passed December 16th, 2020, so as to adjust appropriations, transfers, and advances from the various funds of the city to individual accounts for the current expenses of the city for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2021, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-086 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-87 in title only?
Draft number 2021-087, an ordinance authorizing recommendation to accept the One Ohio opioid settlement and to enter into the participation agreement with opioid distributors AmerisourceBergen, McKesson, and Cardinal Health, and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Please call the roll on suspension.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
And Mr. Ferrara?
Yes. Move adoption.
Second.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Seeing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
And Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Draft 2021-087 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-88 in title only?
Draft number 2021-088, an ordinance accepting a donation in the amount of $200 to the City of Kent Parks and Recreation Department towards the Youth Tackle Football Player Sponsor Fund and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Gwen. Please call the roll on suspension.
Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amorine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
and Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Garrett. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish,
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti,
Yes.
Ms. Wallach,
Yes.
Mr. Amorine,
Yes.
Mr. De Leon,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara,
Yes.
and Mr. Kuhar.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-088 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read draft number 2021-89 in title only?
Draft number 2021-089, an ordinance accepting a donation in the amount of $200 to the City of Kent Parks and Recreation Department towards the purchase of a memorial tree for the Kent Parks and declaring an emergency.
Suspension.
Second.
Second by Mike. Please call the roll for suspension.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish? Yes. Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amorine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
And Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Gwen. You did, okay. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance?
I have something.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to, I know that the names aren't listed here, but for the $200 for the youth tackle football and for the tree, I would just like to extend my gratitude to those people that donated that money. It's very much appreciated, and I just want to make sure that whoever that is out there, thank you very much. It goes a long way in our city. Thank you.
Any other comment on it? Hearing none, please call the roll for adoption.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amorine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
And Ms. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-089 is passed.
Okay, thank you. Would the clerk read 2021-90 in title only?
Draft number 2021-090, an ordinance accepting a donation in the amount of $700 to the City of Kent Parks and Recreation Department towards the planting of a memorial tree and the addition of a memorial bench for the Kent Parks and declaring an emergency.
Move suspension.
Second.
Second by Gwen. Please call the roll for suspension.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amorine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
And Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Move adoption.
Second.
Second by Mike. Is there any discussion on adopting this ordinance? Gwen?
I'd just like to
Ditto.
also thank these people. They're included too, so there we go. I should have waited till the third one.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll for discussion.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Mr. Amorine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
And Ms. Schaefer-Bish.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-090 has passed.
Okay, thank you. That's it for Finance Committee. We're going to move to any unfinished business. Seeing none. New business. Tracy?
Oh, Tracy.
Yeah, I think we should look at the absence on the boards and commissions. I think, isn't council only allowed to miss 3 in a row and then something happens to us? I think they're-
Unexcused.
Unexcused. If they're excused, you can do it all day long. If they're unexcused, then 3, they,
Well, what's an unexcused? You just didn't tell the people you were going to be
all they have
on?
to do is call in and ask to be excused, and I make the motion in the meeting, and you,
Well, I think it deserves a discussion. I mean, it is a voluntary position, but we would like people to be dedicated to it. I mean, I know when we started the Main Street program, one of the conditions was you could only miss so many, and then you would be asked to leave the board. So I think that's an important thing. So I would like to make a motion to put it in a committee to discuss.
I'll
Is there a
second
second?
that. I'll second that.
second by Gwen. Further discussion, Tracy?
No, I've said what I said.
Gwen?
I have nothing more to add. Thank you.
Roger?
Yeah, I agree it should go in the committee, but I would like to see data. I think it's real important, you know, being an old high school principal, I used to track attendance all the time. So I would like to know, how are our boards and commissions doing? Are people missing a lot? We hear that there's one missing there. It'd be nice to see the data, so I'm not sure who keeps track of that. I don't know if Bridget I don't know if your office does. I'd like to see that data. If we're going to have a committee meeting, what are we going to talk about? I think the data will lead to a meaningful discussion, and I'd just like to see that there.
All right. Tracy, you had your hand up, then Heidi.
Are you going to do the sound ordinance one?
No, I'm going to we're still
Okay.
on a motion. I was going to talk about the motion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that, I'm with Roger on this. I agree, and I guess I would like to know what impact are the absences? Is there an impact on the ability to have a quorum? Does this inconvenience people? I mean, how often does it happen? So I guess that's important to bring to that meeting is, the impact.
Yes.
And Mr. Kuhar?
Yeah, it's not a good situation, and I think as a council, we need to address that problem and maybe find some solutions or alternatives to help prevent that from happening.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Mr. Farrar?
I think it is a relevant topic, but we're going to have a discussion on executive session about that, and I'd rather see what would come about that after the executive session before I voted affirmative for this.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing no more discussion, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Further?
Yeah.
Tracy?
Yeah, I'd also, the sound ordinance seems like it needs to be looked at also, to put some parameters on it or something like that. I know this summer I was having a problem with a person down the street working on his motorcycle from 7 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, and I was told there's nothing I can do about it. So I think we should put in committee discussion of the sound ordinance, take a look at it, see how we can tighten it up.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Heidi.
Yeah.
Tracy, further discussion?
It just seems kind of extreme that somebody for a noise that's 10 to 15 minutes could be taken to court over that noise. So I think we need to tighten things up.
Okay, Heidi? yours?
Yeah, yes, I do want to bring it in. I also want to look at some possible ways that we can, use maybe mediation or something like that instead of it going to court, on a first offense, or, there's got to be some ways that we can encourage better relationships in neighborhoods rather than having people just, call on a noise, because there are many times that we have gas-powered leaf blowers going on in the neighborhood, and I tolerate it because it's like they have to get work done. I understand that. I think that we need that give and take, and so I'm in favor of bringing it back up, not just looking at tweaking the ordinance, but looking at what are some options.
Roger?
Yeah, I thought it was real interesting about a year or so ago when we had a conversation about the open burning. If you recall, we had the chief, the fire chief here to talk to us about the ordinance and how it was applied. And I think that it would behoove all of us to hear from our chief of police, to hear from possibly, hear from Hope, what are some of the other communities doing in terms of the noise ordinances, and take a look at how can we, again, look at the data, and how can we understand what's going on, and then how can we make sure it's applied uniformly across the board.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Tracy, more?
Yep.
All right, go for it.
The Delta variant is going crazy right now, and I'm actually so surprised that the numbers are in a lot of places are a lot bigger than they were with the initial variant when it came out last year. So I don't know if you want to put this in committee or if you just want to do it now, but I think it's time to re-implement the mask mandate. Kent State has already implemented a mask mandate, and I think we should be consistent with Kent State as a city also, so the whole area is in a mask mandate. So do you want to put it in discussion? Are you willing to do it right now? I haven't made a motion yet, so. Do you want to put it in discussion all right, let's put it in committee then
All
to
right.
discuss the mask mandate.
Is there a second?
Would you be interested in amending that, so rather than discussing specifically a mask mandate, getting a report from Joan Seidel about the current state of the county and kind of where we're at before we discuss
Well, we could put that
mandates.
in the committee with the discussion of the mask mandate.
I'd rather just hear, have a report first and then kind of see what comes out of that. I'm not sure of the legal implications of a mask mandate right now, so I don't want to spend a lot of time
Well,
discussing
last
something that
time we
might be
didn't,
illegal.
there was no, what do I want to say? There was no penalty for not wearing a mask. It was just given a mask. It was remember.
Well, has the motion died for the lack of a second? Just out of curiosity.
I'll second it if we include a report from Joan.
Yeah, that's
of
fine.
An update of the county.
That's fine.
Hospital
With an
hospital
updated- yeah.
services are available and
Yeah, so we can
the whole
see if
kit
it's
and caboodle.
necessary. So put it in the committee discussion with Joan if she thinks a mask mandate is necessary now.
All right.
All right, I'll second.
That's agreeable with the first and seconder. Is there any other discussion? Mr. Ferrer.
So what's the motion? I couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
Amy, you want to read the record back?
The motion was to put into committee to receive an update from Joan Seidel and see if a mask mandate is necessary.
Thank you.
Is that right, Tracy?
Yep.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Sign. Tracy, you're on a roll.
I got one more. The UN report on global warming came out, and it says the situation is dire. I mean, it's red alert. I would like to put into committee a discussion of what we can do now, what drastic steps we can do now to help mitigate problems with the, I don't know how to say this. I would like to, like in committee, I'd like to revisit idling and things like that. I mean, people are going to have to change the way they live. We have run out of time. We can no longer push the can down the road, kick the can down the road. So we need to have a serious committee meeting about it. Does that make sense?
Is there a second? Heidi, you're seconding it?
I'm not sure. I know that the Sustainability Commission is working on this.
Yep.
And so that I'm kind of would like more to wait on a report from them, because I know that that is happening, and we did charge them with doing that, and it's
Okay.
urgent now.
Okay, so then we can just get a report from them? How
So
about that?
repeat your motion with the suggestion.
So I guess the motion would be just to have the Sustainability Committee come in front of us and report what they've done with stuff on global warming?
Second.
All right, Heidi. Now, further discussion, Tracy?
Nope.
Tracy, or
Well, I can
Heidi?
just say it's critical. I mean, it's
Heidi,
critical.
further discussion?
Yeah, I agree, and, I've checked in with some of the members and asked them, and so I am hoping that we get a report soon, too, that's going to educate all of us.
All right.
Excuse me.
Wait, we're in a motion.
Okay. Can you repeat the motion? I couldn't hear it.
Oh, repeat your motion.
The motion is to request the Sustainability Commission to come in front of us and report on the items they've come up with to mitigate global warming.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, is that understood? Is there any more discussion? All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That's it, Tracy?
Good for me.
Gwen?
Yeah, after receiving the letters from both Mike Beater and Valerie Landis regarding their presentation before the Architectural Review Board, I'd like to make a motion that we discuss that in committee. I'm assuming that that's the proper way to do it rather than making a motion to overturn it. I think that what they presented was valid, and I think that the reasons for it being rejected, I think, were too subjective, and I don't think it was quite given the proper attention that perhaps it should have deserved. So I'd like to give them an opportunity to appeal that, if that's the proper step to take in this.
Second. Is that
Can I ask a question before you second this?
Yeah.
What is the appeal process for whatever the art board makes?
From what I understand, it's to come to council.
Yeah, there's
Well,
no,
what?
there's no
Bridget's
second.
a paraprofessional on this one.
I'll take
There's no
back my
second
second.
yet.
Until the minutes are formally approved by the Architectural Review Board.
Okay.
So that we have the public record, and then the applicants have been notified that they'll submit something to the Community Development Department saying they want to appeal it and for the reason for it. So we need that official record.
Okay.
We have the waive file, but it has not formally been approved as the minutes for that meeting. So right now, we don't have anything formal to appeal yet.
Okay. Then I'd like to change my motion then. I'd like to make a motion that, to send to committee a discussion of creating design guidelines for the ARB, and also a discussion of binding versus non-binding decisions by the ARB. I think council should look at that, because I think the two kind of go hand in hand. If we're going to commit to guidelines, or we're not going to commit to guidelines, and what the implications might be for ARB, to give them guidance to, and also business owners that may go before them.
Second.
Second by Heidi. Further discussion, Gwen?
No, I think I said pretty much it.
Further discussion on the seconder?
I think Gwen covered it pretty well, but, I think that in the absence of some real true design guidelines, we do end up getting into these very subjective rulings, and it may be considered sometimes pretty unfair, and creating a business climate that, is chilling. So I think that we need to have something that everybody knows in advance. These are the guidelines. So I think it's important.
All right, Roger, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm wondering if this isn't redundant. I believe 4 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago, I had made a motion, and it passed in council, that we directed Bridget and the administration to hold a work session with the ARB to even look at the possibility of hiring an outside person. So I'm wondering if we aren't kind of overlapping things, because that was kind of the goal, was to get that information in front of us to decide how we can move it from just an arbitrary decision to some kind of guideline. So I don't know if this, to me, this seems like the same motion, except, we're asking just to put it in committee. I think we have something more specific coming, unless I'm wrong.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I think that's what we did.
Yeah, you
So,
did.
I think it's the timing of it is horrible. That these situations are coming up, because it's going to take time for Bridget and her group to get together and find people. So, but I think we need to hear those concerns. I'm all for that. So if we're going to talk about it in committee, we can. But again, I think it's redundant, in my opinion.
Tracy, you had your hand up?
That's what I was going to say. We already told the, staff.
So you feel it's in committee already?
Yeah, it's already being done.
I guess I'm unsure.
Is it on here?
If it's,
Maybe you weren't here for that one meeting. we missed.
Amy, do you have your committee schedule? Just a minute.
I don't think so.
Not in committee.
Oh, it is. Bridget and I have talked about it.
Yeah.
She's planning it. Like
Yeah, they're
Garrett
not
said,
done
we're
yet.
going to have some conversation on this topic in exec session.
Yeah.
So we wanted to get your feedback coming out of that for how soon, when, et cetera.
I guess I'm a little unsure what the difference, I guess it was maybe how I consider a work session. Is it it's more of a conversational, where I'd rather have council issue more of a directive on what we'd like ARB to do?
Let's see how it's presented the last time.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Amy's looking it
It
up,
could
I
just
think.
be semantics.
I can't
was the
find it
object.
right now. I'll have
The
to find it.
object
Was to
Let me
get
get back
All right.
to you.
we want to vote on guidelines. We want to
I know, I remember Mr. Sidoti presenting or asking it
I
to go
remember
to
it too, but I don't know how it was stated.
it was asked to go to a work
the
session.
developing of guidelines.
Wait a minute, Bridget's going to have some insight here.
Yeah, Bridget.
Asked in June for a work session between council and the ARB in 2 to 3 months, which Dave and I talked about would be by September. And you also asked for me to secure estimate price quotes for design guidelines, which I have already done.
There you go.
Will you have it ready by September?
I can have it for you right now if you'd like.
Well, I got plans after the meeting.
It's not on the agenda. All right, what's the feeling? You want to...
If it sounds like that's basically essentially what's already been discussed, so I'm fine tabling my motion if it's going to show up on the September meeting, because I do think that we do have to expedite this a little bit, because we've got business owners who are spending money, they're putting together professional presentations, and I don't want to leave them in a limbo where they're not sure when they go before a government organization what the outcome could possibly be. I think that's unfair to do it to our business owners. So long as it's going to be in September, I'm all for it. Thank you.
So you want to rescind your motion?
Yep, I'll table it, my own motion.
Don't say table.
Don't table.
Oh, my God, all right, I'm rescinding.
Gwen, you need to read the Robert's Rule Book. All right, so that's a moot point.
Okay.
Is there anybody else? New business? Councilperson's comment, Mr. Sidoti. Wow,
Yeah.
that was fast.
I'll try. We have to commend our administration. I don't think our community understands the significance of getting such a great audit report. The leadership within our administration, Rhonda in her office. Maybe we'll give Mr. Coffey a little bit of a, no, okay, just Rhonda. But really, that's pretty significant. I think we were, what, in the top 10, Rhonda? One of the top 10 communities in the state in terms of our audit. Every dollar is accounted for, every expenditure is done appropriately. That's significant. I know that with a large organization like the City of Kent, is very similar to organizations like schools that I used to be involved in. And to get an audit report that clean, that says a lot. I just want to commend you guys. It's just wonderful, and I think the community should know this. I think we need to get a press release out there so they know their tax dollars are being watched over with great scrutiny and with great integrity. And I think I can't thank you guys enough for that on behalf of our community. So.
Okay. John, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I have two things. First thing is a question for Hope. On our noise ordinance, do I recall that there is an exemption for industrial zone property? And does that also include commercial zone property?
Good question, John.
That's a good question, Bridget. It's not? No.
Just industrial.
Yeah.
Industrial zoning, okay. So that was the technical thing I had to talk about.
Agricultural.
Pardon me?
Agricultural.
Agriculture. Oh, agriculture.
Orange
Yeah,
stop,
it took
drink
me a
too
while
much
to hear
noise
that
or what?
The second thing I'd like to, say for my comment, and I shared it with Dave earlier, I had a nephew down in Florida, about 275 pounds, 6 foot something, weightlifter, paramedic, firefighter, volunteer in youth athletics. He was a he-man. 52 years old, one of the healthiest, strongest, nicest people you'd ever see. And I got a call a couple weeks ago that he passed away. And his brother said that his heart failed, his liver failed, his lungs gave up, and he couldn't figure out what was wrong with him, and found out that he was in the hospital for 2 weeks with COVID. But he didn't think COVID could have killed him, but that's what he was treated for, and that's what he died of. And he was a no-vaxxer, and his brother's a no-vaxxer. So I just leave that for any intelligent person that wants to listen to that conversation and take what they want from it.
Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
When?
I have a comment. I just wanted to thank Main Street Kent for their continued support for the downtown area businesses. I know firsthand the impact that Main Street Kent has on small businesses. I want to thank them and just express my gratitude to the volunteers, the thousands of hours that they dedicate to our downtown, and the continuing array of events and activities that they do, especially during the pandemic. Those are some very stressful times for business owners, and it looks like we might be diving right back into that, unfortunately. So I just want to applaud them for that and extend my appreciation to the board, to the volunteers, and to the director of Main Street Kent. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else? Mayor's comment, we got a lot going on this weekend. We got Dog's Day of Summer this Saturday, downtown by Hometown Plaza. Kent State is doing the student kickoff, which is Sunday the 22nd from 5 to 8 on the Espionage. The Legion is celebrating their 100th year anniversary this Saturday. And the Bowman Breakfast is August 31st, so if any of you want to make your presence, you're welcome there. Are you under the mayor's comments?
No, are you done?
No,
I have a
still
question to
mayor.
ask.
Go ahead.
It doesn't have to do with mayor's comments, though.
Why didn't you say it under councilman comments? Go ahead, Tracy.
A member of the audience would like to say something. Can we make an exception to our rule to let them or not? It's up to, I'm just, whatever you want to do. You're the mayor.
We generally don't. If the majority of the people are all right with it, we'll do it. Any objections? Go ahead.
Did you want to say something, Wendy?
Come up to the mic, please.
I understood that you were going to address my question during new business.
It's put in committee, I think.
Yeah.
We put it in the committee.
We did.
But
We can't.
The clerk will notify you when we're going to discuss it.
What would they do for practice next week?
That's all we can do is put it in committee.
It takes,
Government is slow.
Anything else? We have an executive session.
Yeah, I move executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, paragraph 121.22, section G, item 1, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. Items to be discussed, boards and commissions, city manager's annual evaluation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ferrera. Roll call.
Mr. Amrine?
Yes.
Mr. De Leon?
yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Kuhar?
Yes.
Ms. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer-Bish?
Yes.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Ms. Wallach?
Yes.
Once again, we need a motion to excuse Mr. Turner.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Jack. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We'll give you 5 minutes to clear the room. Under my memo for executive session, council is supposed to be present, Mr. Ruhr, Hope Jones, and Bridget.
He resigned.